She did it again. Every morning, that shiny silver Porsche would roll into my driveway like it owned the place. And every morning, I'd watch from my porch, coffee in hand, feeling my blood boil a little more. The driver? Karen's son Tyler, 19. Cocky, spoiled, and fully aware that the driveway wasn't his. But today something was different. He stepped out of his car, smirked, and said, "You should be thankful, old man. My car makes your house look rich." Then, he tossed his keys in the air like it was some kind of show. I didn't say a word, just stared at him while he strutted toward his mom's house across the street. Karen's house. The same Karen who once tried to fine me for having grass too green. Yeah, that woman. She'd stand behind her HOA badge like it was the Constitution. That afternoon I came back from work to find oil stains across my driveway, fresh ones, and a folded paper taped to my door. HOA notice. Unauthorized parking space will be reassigned. Chairwoman Karen. I laughed out loud. She'd actually signed it like she ran the entire neighborhood. I crumpled the paper, dropped it on the porch, and looked across the street. Karen was out there pruning her roses, pretending not to see me. Tyler was revving his Porsche again, right there in my spot. I walked over slowly. "You've got 2 minutes to move that car," I said, calm as ever. Karen looked up and smirked. "You don't give orders here, sweetie." "I do. My son will park wherever he wants. You're lucky we even let you live in this neighborhood after your little garage project." I stared at her. That same fake smile, the same tone dripping with superiority. "This isn't HOA property," I said. "This is my driveway, my land." She folded her arms. "Not anymore. The board voted to extend the shared access zone. So technically, it's ours now." She wasn't bluffing, and she had actually printed out a fake HOA map and stuck it on her clipboard. I could see it. She'd gone that far. I took a deep breath and said nothing. Just turned around and walked back inside. She laughed behind me, loud enough for the whole street to hear. "You can't touch us, honey," she yelled. She had no idea who she was dealing with. That night I opened my garage. Inside wasn't just my toolbox and old workbench. It was my world. A fully equipped auto workshop, one I'd built myself, because before moving here, I spent 15 years as a senior mechanical engineer for Porsche, and I still had a few old tricks left in me. When the sun rose the next morning, Tyler's Porsche wasn't in my driveway anymore. It was in my garage, silent, dismantled, and stacked neatly into scrap metal piles. By the time Karen came running, screaming across the street, I was sitting on my porch again with my coffee. I looked up at her and said quietly, "I told you." 2 minutes were over. Her scream echoed down the street. And that was just the beginning. Karen's voice shook the whole street. "You psychopath. You destroyed my son's car." Her words came out like venom, but behind them was something else, fear. The kind of fear that comes when control slips away. Neighbors started peeking out their windows. Some even stepped out, pretending to water plants just to watch the chaos. Tyler ran up, eyes wide, staring at the pile of twisted metal that used to be his Porsche. "Mom, he really did it," his voice cracked. "He crushed my car." I didn't move, just kept sipping my coffee, calm and steady. "Correction," I said. "I recycled it. It was on my property, abandoned, technically, so I handled it." Karen stormed closer, face red, finger pointing like a loaded gun. "You think you can touch my son's car and get away with it? I'm calling the police. You'll be in jail before lunch." I shrugged. "Call whoever you want." She stomped back toward her porch, yelling into her phone so loud the entire block could hear. "Yes, officer. He destroyed private property. My son's Porsche, worth over 100 grand. I smiled slightly. "Try 200, I murmured. When the cops pulled up, Karen ran toward them like she'd just found her heroes. "That's him," she screamed. "Arrest him right now. He's dangerous." The officer, a tall man with dark glasses, looked at me calmly. "Sir, you want to explain what happened?" Before I could answer, Karen cut in. "He's lying. He's always causing trouble. He built some illegal workshop in his garage. He's not even authorized to be here." The officer held up a hand. "Ma'am, let the man speak." I looked the cop straight in the eye. That car was illegally parked on my property for weeks. I asked them multiple times to move it. They ignored every warning, so I followed county code. For 2.16, property owner's right to remove abandoned vehicles. The officer blinked. You know the code number? Karen scoffed. He's making that up. I smiled faintly. No, I'm not. Used to work in city engineering. I helped write that code. For the first time, Karen's face lost color. The officer walked over to my garage, inspected the crushed Porsche, then nodded. Everything checks out, ma'am. Technically, it was on his land. You can't just park wherever you want. Karen's jaw dropped. You can't be serious. That's my son's car. The officer sighed. Ma'am, maybe next time you read the community rules before assuming authority. Also, he pointed at the fake HOA map still pinned to her clipboard. That document isn't legal. Karen froze. What? The officer peeled the page off. It's printed from Google Maps with pen marks. That's forgery. Her voice cracked. I was just trying to maintain order. The officer handed me his card and whispered, if she tries anything else, file a report. Then he left. Karen stood in silence for a moment, trembling, then whispered to herself, you'll regret this. You have no idea who I am. I finally looked up. Maybe not, but you'll remember who I am. And with that, she turned and stormed away, dragging her son behind her. But something in her eyes told me this wasn't over. The next morning, things felt too quiet. No engine revving, no shouting. No Karen pacing in her yard pretending to inspect my grass. Just stillness. But I've lived long enough to know, when someone like Karen goes quiet, it's not peace. It's planning. By noon, I found out I was right. A bright orange paper was taped to my door again. Urgent notice. Home under investigation for illegal workshop activity. Signed by Karen, HOA chairwoman. Same cheap font, same fake seal. I laughed under my breath. She never learns. But this time she didn't come alone. 2 men in black polo shirts with security. Enforcement stitched on the sleeves pulled. Up in a dark SUV, they didn't look official, no badges, no names, just attitude. One stepped forward and said, Sir, we're here to inspect your property. HOA directive. I crossed my arms. Which HOA? He flipped a laminated card that looked like it had been printed at a mall kiosk. Neighborhood compliance unit. I stared at him, so, fake cops now? Karen came out from her porch, arms crossed, that smug smile back. They're not fake. They're authorized contractors, and unless you want to lose your house, you'll let them in. Neighbors started gathering again. Phones out. This was better than reality TV. I didn't move. I just said, you're trespassing. Karen's tone snapped. I warned you. You brought this on yourself. These men will document your violations and forward them to the county office. The taller officer tried to step past me. I didn't block him physically, I didn't have to. I held up my phone. The red light on my camera was blinking. Smile, I said softly. You're live. He froze. What? Yeah. This camera feeds directly to the sheriff's department's fraud unit. You might want to smile while you still can. Karen's face went pale. You're bluffing. I looked right at her. Try me. I tapped the side of my phone, and from across the street, a black pickup truck rolled up. The logo on the side read, County Sheriff Volunteer Division. The driver stepped out, a big guy, gray hair, calm eyes. Everything okay here, John? Karen blinked. You know him? I smiled. Meet Sheriff Davis. We served together in the Reserve Division. You remember that illegal workshop you keep talking about? It's actually certified by the county. I repair official vehicles here on weekends. Karen stumbled backward. That can't be true. The sheriff raised an eyebrow. Actually, ma'am, it's not only true. Your security team just broke about 4 laws, including impersonating enforcement officers and unlawful entry. The fake officers tried to retreat, but 2 patrol cars rolled in behind them. Real ones this time. Karen's eyes darted around in panic. This is a misunderstanding. I was just trying to protect the neighborhood. The sheriff sighed. Ma'am, you're coming with us for questioning. She screamed. You can't arrest me. I am the HOA. I looked her dead in the eye. No, Karen, you're just a woman who thought she could fake power and get away with it. As they took her away, the neighbors clapped. Not loud, but steady. Some even smiled. Tyler stood frozen, staring at his mom being cuffed. He looked at me with a strange mix of anger and shame. Before he got in his house, I said quietly, Son, sometimes it's better to learn from your mother's mistake than defend it. He didn't reply, just nodded and shut the door. But I knew it wasn't over. Because power-hungry people like Karen, they don't break easily. They come back quieter, smarter, and twice as dangerous. 3 days passed, and for the first time since moving into this neighborhood, I actually felt peace. No fake notices, no loud engines, no shouting across the fence. It felt almost too calm, but I'd learned something about people like Karen. Silence doesn't mean surrender. It means they're loading another weapon. On the 4th night, I woke up to flashing red and blue lights outside. My heart dropped. I stepped out barefoot, robe on, and saw real county police cars lined up along my driveway. 6 of them. A tall officer with a stern look approached me. "Sir, are you John Miller?" "Yeah," I said slowly. "What's going on?" He held up a paper. "We received a report that your garage contains stolen vehicle parts and illegal machinery. We have a search warrant." I froze. "That's insane. Who reported that?" Before he could answer, I heard the familiar voice. Soft, shaky, pretending to be innocent. I just didn't know what else to do, officer." "He's dangerous." Karen was standing across the street in a gray coat, fake tears rolling down her face. Her arm in a sling like she'd been through a war. She looked like a broken victim instead of the woman who had tormented everyone for months. I felt my chest tighten. "You've got to be kidding me." The officer sighed. "Sir, just step aside. We'll handle this." They pushed past me, stormed into my garage. Flashlights sweeping over every tool, every workbench. I knew everything in there was legal. But that didn't matter, and the humiliation did. Neighbors came out again. Phones out, some whispering, others pretending to be concerned. Karen played her part perfectly. "I just want the truth," she said softly. "If he's innocent, he has nothing to hide." One of the officers came out a few minutes later, holding a small black bag. "Sir, this was found under your workbench." Karen gasped. "Oh my God. That looks like the same device Tyler's car used before it was stolen last year." I blinked. "What are you talking about?" "That's not mine." The officer looked at me seriously. "Sir, this bag contains VIN tags and part labels. Cut ones." Karen's fake gasp turned into a trembling cry. I tried to warn everyone. "He's dangerous. He's been dismantling stolen cars right under our noses." I stared at her, calm, quiet, but burning inside. "You planted that, didn't you?" Her tears stopped instantly. Just a small smirk formed. "You can't prove it." But she was wrong, I could. Because 2 weeks before this madness started, I'd installed a 24-hour camera system, not just outside, but inside my garage. Every second recorded to a secure cloud. I turned to the officer. "You might want to check the footage before believing anything that woman says." They looked at each other, then nodded. "You have access to it now?" "Yeah, give me a minute." I pulled out my phone, opened the app, and played the footage from earlier that night. The video was clear. Karen's son Tyler, sneaking into my garage while I was asleep, placing the black bag under my workbench. The crowd gasped. The officer froze. Karen's fake tears vanished completely. "Ma'am," the officer said slowly, "we're going to need you and your son to come with us." Karen's face went white. This is a setup." "He edited that. He's manipulating evidence." But Tyler had already broken. "Mom, stop. He told me he had cameras. You said no one would find out." The crowd exploded with whispers. Someone actually laughed. Karen turned on her son, screaming, "You idiot!" before an officer gently pulled her hands behind her back. As they led her toward the squad car again, she twisted around and shouted, "You think this is over, John? You'll regret the day you ever moved here." I stood there under the flashing lights, the whole neighborhood watching, and said quietly, loud enough for the cameras to catch, "I don't fight wars. I end them." The next morning, the neighborhood was different. People nodded at me when I passed by, smiled even. Some came over just to say, "You did the right thing." Others avoided eye contact, scared to get involved. The street that used to belong to Karen now felt like neutral ground again. But deep down I knew this wasn't finished. Karen's words echoed in my mind. "You'll regret the day you ever moved here." By afternoon, I got a call from the county office. A calm voice said, "Mr. Miller, we need you to come down to the courthouse. There's been an urgent development." When I arrived, a young detective met me with a thin file in his hand. We ran background checks on Karen and her son. Turns out, she's not exactly who she says she is. He opened the file and my stomach tightened. Her real name wasn't Karen Hill, it was Caroline Hensley. She'd changed her identity 5 years ago, after being investigated for embezzling funds from a homeowners association in another state. She escaped charges due to a missing witness, the detective said. That witness was supposed to testify against her, a county auditor named John Miller. I froze. What? He nodded slowly. You were the one who filed the report back then. Small HOA in Florida. She vanished before the hearing. Guess she found you again. For a moment, the room felt cold. The humiliation, the fake cops, the false accusations, and it all made sense now. This wasn't about a car or a driveway. This was revenge. The detective sighed. She must have recognized you when you moved into the neighborhood. Changed her name again, set up a fake HOA structure, and tried to frame you. I leaned back, stunned. She's been planning this for years. Looks that way, he said. But the good news and the evidence from your cameras and the past fraud report connects everything. The DA's filing multiple charges: impersonation, falsifying documents, and obstruction of justice. I left the courthouse with a storm of thoughts. Every piece finally fit. Karen hadn't just been power-hungry. She'd been desperate to destroy the man who once exposed her. That evening, I stood in my driveway again, watching the sunset paint the street gold. For once, I thought it was over. But then my phone buzzed, an unknown number. I answered, and a distorted voice said softly, "You think you won, John? She's not the only one who wants payback." Then the line went dead. I turned slowly toward the dark SUV parked down the block, windows tinted, engine running. It pulled away just as I looked at it. And that's when I realized Karen might have fallen, but her mess ran deeper than anyone knew. I whispered to myself, so this wasn't just about her. Because the game she started wasn't ending with her arrest. It was just shifting to someone new. That night sleep wouldn't come. I sat by the window, watching the empty street where Karen's house stood. Lights off, driveway quiet, curtains drawn. It looked abandoned, but something about it felt wrong. Like the storm hadn't passed, just moved underground. Around midnight, my motion alert pinged. Camera 3, backyard fence. I opened the feed, expecting a raccoon or maybe Tyler sneaking back. But it wasn't him. A man in a dark suit was standing by the fence, holding a flashlight, calm, precise. He wasn't trespassing, he was searching. I stepped outside quietly, flashlight in hand. "You're on private property," I said firmly. He turned slowly, showing his badge. "Federal investigator. Name's Reed. We need to talk about Karen Hill, or Caroline Hensley, as you now know her." I lowered my light slightly. "What's left to talk about? She's behind bars." He shook his head. "Not anymore. She was released this evening on conditional bail. Someone powerful posted it, cash, no questions asked." My chest tightened. "Who?" Reed hesitated. "A man named Douglas Pierce, CEO of Metroland Development, Karen's ex-husband." I frowned. "That name sounds familiar." He nodded. "It should. He's been trying to buy this neighborhood for 2 years. Every home, every lot. But you, Mr. Miller, you're the only one who refused. Karen was working for him. Her job was to push you out legally, or break you down until you left." The air felt heavy. All her fake notices, her fake cops, the staged raid, they weren't random. They were planned. "So this wasn't personal?" I asked quietly. Reed's eyes met mine. "It started personal, but then it turned into business. And now, it's both." Before I could respond, a loud bang echoed across the street. Karen's old house burst into flames, orange light exploding through the windows. Reed drew his gun. "Get back!" I ran to grab the garden hose, but the fire was too strong. Within seconds, the front porch collapsed, and through the flames, I saw something glint, a small silver laptop on the porch railing, melting under the heat. Reed shouted, "That's what they came for!" He ran toward it, pulling me back as debris crashed around us. "Karen had files," he yelled. Proof that Pierce bribed HOA officials across 5 counties. She was going to trade them for immunity. Someone didn't want that deal to happen. We stood there as the house burned, sirens approaching from every direction. Firefighters poured in, but the place was gone. Reed turned to me, his voice low. "You still have the footage from your cameras, right?" I nodded. "Good, make backups. If Pierce went this far, he won't stop." By morning, investigators ruled the fire as arson. Karen's location unknown. Tyler disappeared too. But before the agents left, Reed handed me a small drive. That's her last email, recovered before her laptop was destroyed, he said. I opened it later that night. Just one line sent from Karen's account. John was right. They own everything. Tell him. The files are in the driveway. I rushed outside, scanning every inch of concrete. Nothing. Then I remembered the old drain by the corner, the one Tyler used to flick cigarette butts into. I opened the grate, and there it was. A waterproof USB taped inside. When I plugged it into my computer, my hands shook. Documents, names, transactions, everything Pierce had done to buy and control HOAs across the state. Enough to bury him. The next morning, I handed the drive to Reed personally. He smiled and said, "You just ended something that's been corrupt for 10 years. I nodded slowly. "No," I said quietly. "I just finished what Karen started." A week later, the news hit every major channel. Developer arrested in HOA fraud scandal. Millions recovered. Standing on my porch, coffee in hand, I looked across the street at the blackened shell of Karen's old house and said softly, "Some wars don't end with enemies destroyed. They end with truth exposed." And for the first time, the neighborhood was truly silent, not because of fear, but because justice finally spoke louder than power.